August 13, 2025. In the contested waters of the South China Sea, a Chinese warship chose confrontation over caution, shadowing the American destroyer USS Higgins with a mix of arrogance and menace. Beijing's commanders barked warnings over the radio claiming sovereignty, while Chinese Coast Guard vessels turned their water cannons on Filipino fishermen, driving them out of their own waters like trespassers. The sight was bitter, fragile wooden boats retreating before steel giants. But the USS Higgins is no ordinary ship. At 200 tons of reinforced steel and precision weaponry, it was built to command the seas with calm authority. This was no routine patrol. It was a collision of pride, of power, and of law. So what really happened in this standoff? Were shots fired? Let's uncover the truth. At exactly 7:46 a.m., the calm seas near Scarborough Shoal erupted into tension. USS Higgins, designed to defend and dominate, was conducting a lawful freedom of navigation operation, Washington's way of reminding the world that trade routes cannot be claimed by force. But China had other ideas. Out of the haze emerged several Chinese warships, Type 052D destroyers and Type 054A frigates, closing in fast. Within minutes, they were less than 500 yards away, their silhouettes knifing across the waves like predators on the hunt. Over the radio came a harsh English warning. U.S. warship, you are in Chinese waters. Leave immediately or face consequences. This was no routine intercept. It was deliberate intimidation, even provocation. Some Chinese ships cut across Higgins's bow at dangerous angles, their wakes threatening collision. The message was simple: yield or be forced to. On Higgins's deck, sailors tightened their grips on the rails. Their orders were clear: steady course, steady speed, no unnecessary chatter, not a single missile armed, not a single gun raised. For civilians, this restraint may seem incomprehensible. Why endure harassment when you command such overwhelming firepower? But that is modern conflict's razor edge. Real strength is measured not just in weapons, but in discipline. One wrong move could have turned 155 meters of steel into a spark for global war. Scarborough Shoal, little more than a scattering of reefs, became the stage for two superpowers staring each other down. The peace of the Pacific balanced on a knife's edge. Would you, as the Higgins commander, have ordered the Chinese to be fired upon? The standoff stretched second by suffocating second. The Chinese pressed harder, circling tighter. At one point, a frigate crossed so close, just 300 yards, that a collision could have torn open hulls, ignited fuel, and killed hundreds. The Chinese captains knew the risk. That was their tactic. Higgins's bridge stayed calm. Orders were precise, voices steady, though the tension on deck told another story. Sailors' knuckles whitened as they gripped steel rails. Later, one described it as standing in front of a loaded cannon, daring it to fire. They knew what their ship carried: 96 missile tubes, tomahawks, harpoons, SM-2 interceptors. In less than 2 minutes, Higgins could have reduced every hostile contact to burning wreckage. But that was exactly why restraint mattered. To unleash such power would not only sink enemy ships, it could drag two nuclear-armed superpowers, representing over 1.7 billion people, into war. The burden of restraint was heavier than the destroyer itself. The provocation stung. Imagine serving aboard a $2 billion destroyer and being taunted by ships half its capability. Every shouted order from Beijing was an insult not just to the mission, but to the American flag. Yet this too was a form of strength. Higgins's SPY-1D radar tracked every contact, over 200 at once, marking each Chinese ship, fishing vessel, and aircraft. If ordered, they could strike first, fast and decisively. China wanted to show dominance. Instead, it showed desperation. Restraint was not weakness. It was proof that America's power lies not only in its arsenal, but in its ability to control it. But every sailor aboard Higgins knew a hard truth: patience has limits, and when those limits are crossed, the response can shake the world. While Chinese destroyers prowled menacingly, USS Higgins maintained its course, cutting the waves with unwavering precision. To an outsider, it looked passive, even cornered. But beneath its decks lay an arsenal that could alter history in an hour. The destroyer's 96 missile tubes could carry Tomahawks with 1,000-mile reach, SM-2 interceptors for air defense, and ESSMs for close-in protection. Its phalanx CIWS could spit 4,500 rounds per minute, a wall of steel shredding any incoming threat. Its SPY-1D radar scanned hundreds of targets simultaneously. For Beijing's commanders, these facts weren't lost. Their own warships bristled with weapons. Type 052Ds armed with YJ-18 anti-ship missiles, capable of supersonic strikes nearly 300 miles out, and Type 054A frigates adding dozens of missile tubes. But they knew the reality. In a real fight, Higgins, linked into the U.S. Navy's Aegis network with satellites overhead and submarines lurking unseen, could wipe them from the sea in minutes. This was psychological theater, not military dominance. China's goal was to create propaganda, images of defiance, not victory. The Americans knew it. Their mission was to endure and let the world see who carried true authority without firing a shot. But while warships circled each other, another, more human drama unfolded. Over 40 Filipino fishing boats, some barely 50 feet long, tried to haul their morning catch near Scarborough Shoal. For these families, the reef was not a battlefield, it was survival. Then China's Coast Guard and militia vessels swooped in. Sirens blared. Water cannons roared, blasting torrents powerful enough to smash windows and rip nets. Wooden boats were rammed by steel hulls displacing 2,000 tons. Radios crackled with insults, calling the fishermen trespassers and vermin. By noon, at least a dozen Filipino boats had been forced away, their nets shredded and catch lost. This wasn't just harassment, it was economic warfare. Generations of livelihoods destroyed in hours. And all in waters the 2016 Hague ruling had already confirmed as belonging to the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. But rulings on paper mean little when power is enforced with steel and intimidation. From Higgins's deck, American sailors saw distant flashes of spray and tiny silhouettes scattering before larger ones. They could do nothing. Their mission was restraint. Yet in their silence, the truth stood out. A U.S. destroyer enduring harassment, while Allies' fishermen were beaten back. China's hunger for control showed no mercy, not even to civilians. Scarborough Shoal is just a ring of reefs, but whoever controls it controls sea lanes carrying $3.5 trillion in trade each year. Oil tankers alone haul over 15 million barrels of crude daily through the South China Sea, feeding Japan, South Korea, and the U.S. itself. If Beijing cements its dominance here, it gains the power to throttle global commerce without firing a shot. For America, the stakes are unmistakable. Abandon the Philippines to intimidation, and Japan or South Korea will question U.S. promises. Every Chinese broadcast of these encounters claims victory. Yet Higgins's quiet presence proved another truth. The United States is still there, still committed, still defending open seas. The confrontation ended without a single missile launched or a gun fired. But that silence spoke louder than battle. For hours, Higgins endured reckless provocation, watching fishermen scattered like prey, while Chinese destroyers pressed dangerously close. The destroyer held its course, firm, disciplined, unshaken. This is the paradox of 21st century power. America commands the mightiest navy in history, one destroyer carrying enough firepower to shatter fleets. But today, victory is not explosions. It is patience. It is showing that strength is measured not just by what you can destroy, but by what you can choose to restrain. Scarborough Shoal is more than rocks. It's a symbol of two futures, one ruled by law, the other by force. The choice is clear. If intimidation rules the seas, the open world America built after World War II unravels. That August morning delivered one lesson. Peace is fragile. It survives only when those strong enough to defend it refuse to look away. If you value truth and analysis, hit subscribe and stay with us.